Hi, welcome everybody. We haven't seen you in a while, not since February, so we're excited to be back with you for another virtual pipe club meeting. And tonight we are talking to Hekthor Wiebe from Radiator Pipes. Say hi, Hekthor.
Hey guys.
While we give people a chance to get on, I just want to review, if you're watching on YouTube, how you get the ability to ask questions. You're going to need, there's a couple different ways you can do it. If you're watching it from a laptop, a desktop, or an iPad, look to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and there's a little dialog box that says be a part of the conversation. You need to click on that. That'll pop it into a full screen, which will allow you, there'll then be a questions box and a chat box so that you can participate in the conversation. If you're watching it on your phone, or if you're watching it somewhere besides YouTube, the easiest place to post the questions is either below the video on the Google Plus page, or you can also post the questions on Instagram. We have a couple of posts where you'll see about today's Hangout. Anywhere that you put them there, I will grab them and be able to ask them for you. So with that, it looks like we're seeing people start to pop in. So Ben, I'll let you get started.
All right. Should we wait for a comment or something to make sure it's working, or just run with it?
No, I'll be looking here,
okay.
So you can go ahead and
All right,
start
guys.
talking.
Well, thank you everyone again for another pipe meetup here interview. Hekthor, thank you for taking the time to talk with us and smoke with us. I am actually trying the radiator pipe for the first time tonight. I've been meaning to get to it for a while, and I just quickly ran in and grabbed it. So I've got a radiator pipe tonight with some Lane 1Q. And what do you have tonight?
I am actually smoking a tin of Full Virginia Flake from 2010. I picked that up at the West Coast Pipe Show in Las Vegas last year. And I don't know if I've got any of the top ones left, but the amount of plume on this was just amazing. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Delicious.
I take it you prefer flake?
Yeah, you know what? I'm a sucker for flake. I started with cigars before I got into pipes, and I find it suits my my palate best, much like cigars do. It seems to be the most pure tobacco flavor to me, without too much casing on it.
And what? Okay, out of a radiator. Okay, I was gonna say what kind of pipe. All right. So how did you? The first question: how did you get into pipe smoking?
Well, as I mentioned, I was into cigars first, and I know a lot of pipe smokers smoke cigars as well, and I know some people that's a bit of a sticking point for them. There's all pipe or no cigar, but truth is, I started with cigars. And the first cigar I ever had was on my wedding night. Got hooked, loved the flavor, really started doing the research and so on, and really got into it. But let's just say my income didn't really match the price of the hobby. So when my wife and I were planning to start a family, and we were going to have our little guy Peter come along, made the cost-conscious decision to try pipe smoking as an alternative, and really liked it. Actually, I still have the first pipe I ever smoked, which is corn cob pipe. I'm not even sure if it's a Missouri Meerschaum, but it fits their stems, so it must be close enough.
Did you get it from like a local
B&M? It was out of a basket, didn't have a sticker on the bottom or anything like that. But they coached me. Basically, they said, you know what, if pipe smoking is very different, which they're obviously right. They said, you know what, try this, try a couple of house blends, a couple of grams of it, and see if you like it. And if you do, then start investing in the more expensive stuff. So I tried that, absolutely loved it. I think I went through the first 2 baggies in like a week. They were gone. Every moment I could catch, I'd step into the back stairs and just grab a quick smoke. It was really neat. And then I got into researching the pipes and everything. Really liked it. And I bought myself a Savinelli Florence. And I looked at it, and I forget what I paid for it. I think I paid $65 for it or something like that. But when I got it, I looked at it, and I'm like, you know what? I think I can do this. So I started researching pipe making. And sure enough, it was right up my alley for woodworking. So I decided to try my hand at it. Did a lot of research. I worked on.
Hector, give me an idea of time. Give me an idea of timing from. I just want to get an idea of like maybe age-wise or year-wise when you went from cigar to pipe to trying to make it. What was that time frame?
I started on cigars 2009, and in 2011 is when I started pipe making.
Okay.
2011, which is only 5 years ago now. But after making handmade pipes for a while, I started looking at. There's a lot of pipe makers jumping in the game. It was easy to get kind of lost. Your work versus other people's work. It was starting to get a little more difficult to stand out. And really, it's building the name is what makes you stand out with really high quality pipes. That's how you build your name usually. And my time with my son, with all the illnesses he had, I didn't have that much time in the pipe shop. So I didn't have the time to hone the skills as some other pipe makers would. So I felt that I wasn't really competing in the handmade game anymore. So I looked to do something that I was very comfortable with, which was metalworking as well as the woodworking and the briar. And I just happened to have some aluminum stock laying around in the shop from making cigar tools, which was something I had done for a couple of years already. And I had a piece that I had experimented with, and it looked very similar to what we have now as the base. So I decided to draw up a couple of plans, just did a little bit of quick math to figure out whether the aerodynamics and all that would work. And so I ended up machining my first one, and because of the briar that I had left over from making other pipes, there's some small pieces left over, and that was just enough to make a bowl for the pipe, which was at the time smaller than the one that's on the production model. But I smoked it. If you look at my Instagram feed, I'm not quite sure how many years ago now, I smoked it as a test, got quite a bit of interest in it. And unfortunately, I didn't even have time at that point to capture that interest and actually make the pipe, because my son's illness was taking me out of work a lot, keeping me in the house with the wife while we looked after the little guy. I spent a lot of time in the hospital. But then the opportunity of some free time, let's call it, came up when my son and I had to travel to another province for him to get a heart transplant. So I would spend all day at the hospital with him, and because his heart was so weak, he would fall asleep at around 6 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, I'd head back to the hotel room, or that was for the first month, because we only planned to be there for 2 weeks, and we ended up being there for 7 months. So after a while, I was actually living out of a Ronald McDonald House. And if you look at some of my YouTube videos early on with the Radiator, they were shot out of a Ronald McDonald House, which is a phenomenal organization, which I encourage anybody to support whenever you can, because what they do really does help out families. Like I'm a recipient of that, and I can vouch for the fact that their money actually goes to good use. So I had all those sleepless nights to work on it. So because I didn't really have a workshop I could work in the middle of the night, I started teaching myself AutoCAD and started drawing these things up in AutoCAD on the computer, and slowly started outsourcing them, the work for it, because I couldn't really do it myself, all of it. Luckily, I made some friends while I was in Edmonton. That was the town I was in with my son in the hospital there. And I made a couple of friends, some pipe makers, Cody Perkins and Ian Barnes. They both live there. And Cody, he has a strong background in metalwork as well. That was his full-time gig. He was a machinist. And so he helped me get the first one made, because he had the facility to do it. And once we got a prototype and started testing and tweaking and making sure everything worked right, I did up the drawings for the modifications and outsourced it to a machine shop to make them. And lo and behold, the first batch of radiators was born. I turned all the briar myself in Cody's shop and came up with a couple of different finishes. One of them was this finish, which is called the lava rock. It is extremely time consuming to do. And that's one of the reasons why it was discontinued, not for lack of popularity, but it's just very, very time consuming to do a single bowl. And the volume that these things were moving out at the door at, I just couldn't keep up. So had to switch to sandblasting and smooth, which were actually easier to produce than this guy.
Which would be the one that I grabbed.
Yep. Yeah, that'd be the one. That one's quite a bit quicker.
Tell me more about the design. Like, so you had to do this all in CAD?
Yeah, CAD and good old-fashioned graph paper. Because basically I was sleeping 3 hours a night. Just understandably, I guess, everything that was going on, I wasn't really sleeping. So late night TV isn't very interesting. So I was designing it, and the way it works, and I know you guys get a lot of questions about this, and I get them as well. But basically, a lot of folks believe that the radiator base is what does all the cooling, when in fact that's only a portion of it. Its job is to remain cool and do some job of some portion of the condensing of the liquid that's in the smoke. But a big portion of it is actually this stainless steel stem. It remains cool no matter how hard you're dragging on it. It'll stay fairly cool below the dew point. So the moisture will actually collect in here and run down into the base. And the base stays cool as well. And that's where the cooling happens. So when you draw smoke into this chamber as well, it's also a calabash at the same time. So you draw smoke into here, and the next time you puff, it goes up and you draw it into your mouth. So you always have a charge of smoke in there that's there from the last time. So if you actually unscrew it and look into it, you can actually see. You see that? Yeah.
Yep.
There's still a charge of smoke there. That's so if you sit in between drawing, exactly, there you go. Perfect visual. And that's how the calabash works, right? You draw smoke into another chamber where it has an opportunity to cool. That way next time you draw on it, you're drawing the cool smoke. So it's a cycle sort of. You know, it's a chain reaction. You draw hot smoke in, it spends time there, it's called the dwell time, and then it passes on to the smoker. So if you smoke slowly, the effect is amplified.
So that I think helps to answer one of our first questions that we have, Hector. Ohio Pipes asked on Instagram if this was a good pipe for someone who tends to smoke on the hot side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just purely for the fact that it does the calabash, that's where the cooling portion comes in, and the condensation takes the moisture out, which reduces tongue bite and also helps to cool the smoke somewhat. So it's kind of a dual action, right? It dries it and it cools the smoke.
What about the rings around here? Is this functionality or design?
That's purely functional. It just happens to look decent, I guess. Those are actually cooling fins. That helps keep the base cool and kind of expands the cooling functionality of the actual calabash chamber at the bottom.
So we have a couple questions, if you don't mind, about this. First, Hector, Ian Kaiser asks, how long of a smoke do the bigger bowls last for? So how long does it last for? How long?
That kind of is a very subjective question, right? As you guys know, you can smoke a small bowl for an hour, or you can smoke it for 15 minutes, depending on how fast you draw on it. So it's kind of a difficult question to answer. But for instance, these guys, they have 1.5 inch deep bowl, 3/4 inch chamber size width. So that's a fair size bowl, actually. A lot of pipes are usually about 1 inch, a little over 1 inch sometimes, and 3/4 inch diameter. So that's actually a fairly large bowl. Now, if you compare it to, say, the brandy ones, the internal dimensions are actually identical. They both have the exact same depth of bowl, give or take 1/8 of an inch. So they'll actually last the same length. It's purely aesthetic. gives you a little bit more, briar than these guys. This design, as I was mentioning, initially came up as using scrap briar out of my own shop, and that's how they came. That's how they came up. But then it just happened to look decent, and people really identified with it as a nice poker. So I kind of kept the design around. But after a while, started branching out. So we have the brandy finish, and all of these are available on tobaccopipes.com, and also have the volcano. And of course, they come in different finishes. You got smooth brown, smooth red. We've got sandblast black for the volcano and sandblast brown for both the volcano and the brandy. Sandblast black volcano is quite a few people's favorite, I've noticed, just based on sales. The red brandy is actually getting pretty close to sold out, so I might be taking them off my website and saving them for the Chicago Pipe Show soon, just to make sure I have some inventory for that.
So that brings us to another question here, which I think I know the answer to, but I'll let you answer it. Scottish Ruffian 13 asks, can you make custom bowls?
You know what? I've done them in the past. I used to have a lot more free time on my hands. When we first came back after my son got his heart transplant, there was a period of time where I hadn't returned to work yet, and he was in daycare already. We were doing a trial run. That gave me some time in my workshop. But lately I've found that I just don't have the free time in the evenings to do custom bowls. Occasionally, if I'll pick one up if somebody contacts me, and I'll do one. But for the most part, I don't advertise that I do that, but it is an option.
And does Brandon make bowls?
He should have some.
Yeah,
coming.
but Brandon also makes some bowls for you as well, right?
Yeah, Brandon. Actually, the way we work that is, I actually keep some of these bowls in their raw form in all of these shapes. You know, even the new shapes, and I send them to Brandon, and he puts his unique finish on them. Like, he's got some gorgeous finishes, and they take time to perfect, and he's got it down to a science at this point. So that's Brandon Brooks, by the way, just in case somebody doesn't know. Brandon Brooks Pipes. I think he's in Georgia, if I remember the last time I shipped him. And he does some pretty amazing stuff. Like, he's got some. My favorite one is his sunburst finish. Looks like an old guitar. Really beautiful. But yeah, he does custom finishes on them. I know I've had people request them from me, and I always just got to point him. Go see Brandon. He does the magic to him.
And on that same note, Hector, Philip Arthur Simons asked on Instagram, what exactly are the metal parts made of? Can you go over that for people?
Yeah, absolutely. The bottom base is made out of 6061 grade aluminum, and that's the buzzword is military grade aluminum. But the thing is, there's no such thing as military grade. 6061 is just the most common aluminum, and the military uses it because it's the most common. So if you want to use the buzzword military grade aluminum, but it's 6061 aluminum, and that's anodized and has the logo. This one doesn't actually, because this is the prototype. But let's say one of those guys has the logo laser etched in the bottom. And actually, the next batch that I'm expecting in a week or so will have a different bottom on it. It'll actually sport the radiator logo and the website name on it as well. And then the stem is made out of 304 stainless steel tubing. That's seamless, so there's nothing on the inside to catch pipe cleaners. And that's actually a clean segue, let's call it, into how to clean the pipe. I get that question quite a bit.
Yeah,
and,
Brian. Yep, Brian Baldoff actually just asked that on Google Plus. So Brian, here's your answer.
So the way to clean a radiator pipe is actually make sure you never invert it after a smoke. Never tip it upside down, because there will be moisture that collects in the base. So, but you can remove this bowl while it's hot. You can remove it in the middle of a smoke. You've seen you've seen Ben doing it on screen. So you can do it, and you can just pour out any moisture that's in it. I have probably only drawn on this thing 10 times. I'm talking too much, so not a whole lot of moisture is built up in here yet. And also, this is let the tobacco dry out pretty good today. But what you do is you take the bowl off, right? You set it aside. You can do this mid-smoke. take the bowl off and put it back on once you've drained the fluid. But after your smoke, you just take this. This is called the frame. This whole assembly is called the frame, and that's the bowl. And you'll notice that both tobaccopipes.com and my website list them that way now. And what you do is, the only thing removable at this point is the mouthpiece. You just grab the stem. Don't grab it down here and twist, because you can actually damage the tube. So grab it close to the mouthpiece. The straighter ones, you can, on the straight stem one, like the one Ben's smoking, you can grab the radiator base. But for the bent ones, you have more leverage on it, and you can actually bend the tube. So just grab it, twist it a couple of times, and it comes off. It's just a friction fit. And this, you can actually run under tap water. You can put it in soap water. You can soak it if you want. But ultimately, all you have to do is run tap water. I generally recommend you run it into this end, and the pressure of the water will take it all the way through. And then you just pass a pipe cleaner through it. And the question I get a lot is, will it pass a pipe cleaner? Yes. Every single pipe, every single tube. I still make these. Every one of them by hand. I actually bend them. I haven't automated that portion yet. But every single one of these tubes, before it leaves my hands, has had a pipe cleaner go through it. I'm just paranoid that way. I like to keep it nice and clean. It actually goes into an ultrasonic bath to make sure that any polishing compound or anything like that is removed. And I pass a pipe cleaner through it and run water through it. So even the tall, full bent passes a pipe cleaner. I use the Calabash pipe, the Church Warden pipe cleaners, so the little longer ones on the tall ones. But I do believe a standard pipe cleaner will pass just barely, just for lengthwise. I mean, but so I recommend for the tall ones use the Church Warden one. And after that, you can just set it to dry or go right back to smoking it. Put the bowl on. Like I said before, the bowl can be removed and put back on while hot. That doesn't damage anything. Just don't over tighten it. That could potentially damage the briar. And the mouthpiece, you can do the same as the frame. You can run a pipe cleaner through it, or just put it in water, soap water. So the good thing about that is it reduces the ghosting. The only part that really ghosts on this pipe is the briar bowl. And that's the beauty of being able to swap out bowls. So you can dedicate a bowl to each blend. So you can have your Englishes in one bowl. You can have your your Virginias or your aromatics in different bowls. And as long as you maintain a good cleaning regimen on the actual frame, you shouldn't see too much ghosting, if any.
That's neat.
Yeah.
The kind of while we're on this note about materials, Ian Kaiser in the Q&A, and then Johnson JB80 both asked similar questions. They're clinchers, and they want to know how comfortable the bit is and if a rubber bit will fit that. And Ben, you can answer that.
Yeah, so
there's a standard.
Yeah, so I use bits on everything. It fits perfectly on there. So I don't know how to answer it without the bit, but it does fit with the bit very well.
Well, as far as clenching goes, this bit is actually custom designed by me, and that's after quite a bit of tweaking with other samples and asking the opinion of smokers. And the original one had a smaller button, quite a bit smaller button. And although aesthetically pleasing, it actually was a little less comfortable to smoke. So if you clench behind the button, right there, with your teeth, it's actually quite comfortable. The weight isn't as much as people think. Like, you think aluminum and stainless steel and a hunk of briar, it should be quite a bit, but it's not. Oh gosh, when's the last time I weighed one? Of course, I don't have the number in my head right now, but it weighs less than 2 ounces, I do believe. So given the fact that there's that much metal on it, it's actually quite comfortable. And the full bent clenches, because I'm a clencher as well. It clenches quite easily. It just hangs naturally out of the jaw. And the tall bent actually is probably the most comfortable one, because you can hold it down here or you can clench it. It's just a jaw hanger. It's quite comfortable. That's my opinion. And of course, you can speak to other owners of the pipe to get their opinion on it. But just so you know, I have made changes to the mouthpiece, which has been out for, I guess, 4 to 6 months now, is the final design, and it's made of acrylic. The original design was made out of ebonite, and again, this was for mass production. It extremely difficult to get a price on the mouthpieces that I would be comfortable with passing on to you guys, because custom ebonite stems, not cheap. Catalog ones are cheap. Custom made, not so much.
That's cool. So you want to switch gears a little bit? I have a couple more questions. You want those, or you want to go to one of yours?
I just had one as you were going through this, of all the different options you have, colors and bowls. Is that your favorite that you're smoking now, or do you have a favorite?
This just happens to be the prototype, and this isn't even anodized. That's why it's just a standard aluminum color, but it's held up quite well. It hasn't corroded or anything like that, and it's seen quite a few bowls. My favorite by far is shape-wise, tall bent. Color-wise, I would go black on black on black. That's my favorite. Yeah.
Johnny Cash style.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, yeah, no, take the questions.
Okay, Tony NW318 said on Instagram that his internet's down, but he wants to watch the playback, and he wants to know what role and what kind of inspiration does the situation that you've been in with your son Peter play in your pipe making? And I know you've talked a little bit about that.
I would say without the situation that Peter was in, this guy may have never come to fruition. What it did really was it made me, I had aspirations of being a handmade high-grade pipe maker. And I think every pipe maker that starts out, that's their goal. Their ultimate goal is to become a high-grade pipe maker and just put out beautiful, beautiful product. And unfortunately, given the circumstances in my life and my son's life, I just didn't have the time to put into that, to honing that skill. And also, given where we live up here in Canada, we live in a major city. It's just not going to be a full-time job that will ever pay the bills. It won't ever put you on the table full-time. If I were to quit my job, my 9 to 5, and go to fully handmade.
What is your 9 to 5?
My 9 to 5, I'm actually a what's called an MRO purchaser. So maintenance, repair, and overhaul. I'm a purchaser in a large kitchen cabinet manufacturing plant. We employ 1,600 people. And my job is to make sure that the maintenance department has all the parts, services, all that they need to keep the production running. So I support them in that. So I'm a purchaser. That's actually the job I took after my son got sick. I stepped down into that role. Before that, I was a inventory control supervisor. So I looked after about $8 million worth of inventory, making sure that the systems are all accurate, actually implementing systems. So did a lot of software, project management, stuff like that. But given all the time I had to miss because of my son, I wasn't able to really give it my all and see projects through to the end. So I ended up taking a step down just for a job that I'd be able to, when I need to go to an appointment with my son, I can do that without putting a very large project at risk. So for anybody out there who's had to take a step down in their career for loved ones or for their family situation, it's not easy, but in the end, we all do what we have to do to put food on the table for our families and be there by their side, right? So absolutely. People forget that, we're only doing a job, so when we go home, we don't have to worry about what where's the shelter coming from, where's the food coming from. People can forget that that's why we're working, is so we can enjoy the time off, not the other way around,
Absolutely, very true. And it sounds like you're a numbers person. Have you always been just good with numbers and just logistics?
You know what? I like numbers, not in this. I hate math. Let's put it that way. I'm not a big fan of math, but intrinsically numbers don't lie, and I'm a big fan of empirical data that is right, data that you can trust, and not rely on emotion or trends and stuff like that to dictate how to make decisions. I prefer numbers, and generally speaking, numbers will guide you in the right direction for some pretty major decisions. They're not right all the time, right? can't, as long as you deal with human beings, numbers won't be able to answer the questions. But for most part, yeah, I'm definitely all about the numbers.
Well, that's why casinos usually are profitable and win, because they pay attention to the numbers.
Sorry, who's that?
Casinos.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, they're set up. It's always in their favor, right?
Do you have more that are coming in?
I've got a couple, but they're back on the
Okay,
other direction.
I've got so I know you said your original focus, if things didn't happen the way they did, you would have tried to be an artisan pipe maker, right?
Yeah.
And if that was the case, and I'm sure you still have people that you look up to or admire, let's just say you were making those pipes, who would influence your work? Whose work do you like? Who stands out to you? Who do you pay attention to?
Well, as we had done on the interview on your website, I would say initially when I started out, Jeff Grasick, Jay Allen, hit the quality of his pipe, just the finish work, grabbed my attention right away. And just like a lot of new pipe makers these days, I started off YouTube videos, extensive internet research, reading the little book, the PIMO book, and he's still putting out amazing stuff. But what I look, Grant Batson, he makes some amazing stuff. But again, these kinds of things, these artisan pipes, my brain doesn't work that way, right? Like these guys, they can take a raw block without putting a scratch on it with a pencil and turn out a gorgeous, gorgeous piece of work. And it's a functional smoking instrument, And for me, I'm all about the numbers, all about the math, all about the trajectories and so on. I'm all about the trigonometry. So for me to go that route would just, my brain won't allow it. It's like, how can you guarantee that this is right, that is right, and so on? Like sure, it'll smoke, but will it smoke optimally? Stuff like that. But they managed to do it, and that only comes from experience and a lot of hours put in. But lately, I gotta say, Heinemann pipes. Dirk Heinemann, he's from Germany. I've seen a few of his pieces live, and actually, through conversations with other pipe makers, I'm actually going to be, fortunate enough to share a table with him in Chicago Pipe Show. So he'll be right next to me, and some of the stuff he does, only the German attention to detail could pump that out. Like I think everybody would give up on it before they get it done. But just the attention to detail he puts on it is just amazing.
And we just had someone ask that, Hector, if you were going to be at the Chicago Pipe Show. So they're.
Is this your first show?
It's not. It's the first time to the Chicago show. Yeah, the first show I ever went to was last year. It was the West Coast Pipe Show in Las Vegas, and that was an interesting experience. I actually ended up being almost a day late. Learned a new rule about FAA rules. I normally show up to all my flights, about an hour and a half to 2 hours early, but then I end up sitting around in the waiting area until we finally board. And I figured, you know what, I'm not that big of a fan of our city's airport. It's not that interesting. So you know what, I'll show up right around an hour beforehand, get through customs, board the plane in 20 minutes, should be good. Well, it turns out there's a cutoff. If you're not there exactly an hour before your flight takes off, they will not allow you through the gate. So I showed up at 59 minutes before the flight takes off. So they wouldn't allow me to check in. I'm like, I can see the plane. It's right there. It hasn't boarded yet. They're like, nope, sorry, can't do it. So I said, okay, well, when's the next flight? Nothing that night. Ended up being the next day, mid-morning. So I ended up being there a day late, pretty much halfway through the day. And but it was an interesting experience just to see so many like-minded people and finally get to meet a lot of the people that you follow on Instagram or on YouTube, and to finally shake the hand, talk to the people, it was really cool. Yeah. And I really look forward to doing that again in Chicago.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Do you see any? Because you're always looking to. I know. I can tell by your personality and your thought process. You're always looking to improve and perfect. is there anything that you're looking to change over time with the pipes right now? Not saying they're not perfect, but are you evolving into some other designs or thought processes?
Well, the thing about a modular pipe like this is any change you make to it automatically tends to obsolete the parts that came before it, right? So right now you'll notice I'm adding new bowl shapes and stuff like that, but they fit onto the old one. So at the moment, I still think there's legs left in this frame, this type.
Sure.
It hasn't reached its end yet. I am experimenting with different bowl types. My goal is to offer the bowls in briar, as I do now, various shapes. Corn cob. I think that would be a very interesting one because you're going, and clay, believe it or not, because clay pipes. What's the most annoying thing about a clay pipe is it's hard to hold on to because it gets so hot when you smoke it, right? And this kind of solves that problem. But there's so many engineering challenges when you're working with clay. For instance, each weave pipe's bowl or every radiator bowl is screwed on. It's got threading on it, right? Like it's got threading on it. How do you thread clay? You do it beforehand, it shrinks and it no longer fits during the firing process. So you have to do it after the fact. And that brings in a whole nother aspect of the manufacturing process. So it spreads out. It goes from something fairly simple to way, way, way more difficult, right? So that's what's delayed that. But that's my baby. That was always my goal, was to go from the oldest known pipe, which is a clay pipe, right, to modern technology of alloys and plastics and stuff like that. So you merge the two, and I think that would just be a very organic smoking experience with that.
Absolutely. What about meerschaum? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have blocks. I get the question a lot, and I've been in discussion with some carvers to see what they can do to get me some samples. And the difficulty with the meerschaum, again, is it's such a soft, brittle material that once you put a thread in it, it only takes a little bit of over cranking it to strip that thread out, right? So the engineering challenge there is to try and find an intermediary material that's hard enough to hold a thread, but doesn't impart flavor or too much stress on the meerschaum to destroy it over time. And you don't want the coloring to be off in any way, so you can't use adhesives. You can't really seal the pores. That will definitely affect the smoke flavor potentially. So there's a lot of engineering challenges, believe it or not, right? Breaking fairly new ground here. I mean, the pipe's been compared to the Falcon before, and I've held a Falcon now. I've never owned one. I've never smoked one, but I can't say that it was directly inspired by the Falcon. Clearly, they shared two very unique features together, and that's combining metal with briar. So it's not original in that respect. I didn't invent that, but the way they secure is different. You got the threaded portion on the inside of the pipe, whereas on a Falcon it's the other way around. The bowl actually screws into the frame, so it's inverted. And also, I believe the Falcon uses an O-ring for the threading.
Yeah, well, it has an O-ring, and it also has a dry ring. But
yeah. Whereas this doesn't use either. But who knows where that's going to take us in the future with all the different types of materials.
What about a bowl that's briar, cob, clay, and meerschaum all fused together? Can you make that happen?
You got enough money? Yeah, I'll make that happen.
Hector, I know you covered this before, but we just had Craft Deluxe asked on Instagram about the longer stems. Do they stay cooler than the shorter stems?
The stems themselves don't really change too much temperature. I mean, Ben, you could probably feel it might be a little bit warmer than room temperature, but they don't really heat up. I know that is a question I get a lot. Is it going to be possible to hold this? And it really doesn't heat up.
Not hot.
You're not
I've been smoking it for what, 30 minutes now?
40.
Yeah.
40 minutes, and it's not.
Yeah.
I would say warm. I mean, there's like nothing coming off.
I haven't
of it.
smoked one, so I'm curious. Oh, not at all.
No.
Yeah. So the longer stem, it won't necessarily produce a cooler smoke, but it will produce a drier smoke over time, because this is actually a pretty key portion of the evaporative process, right? So not evaporative, sorry, condensation process, because it stays cool below the dew point of moisture. So more moisture, more surface area means more moistures are going to be able to collect and then drop down into the reservoir at the bottom. So the chamber in here, I don't know if I've, yeah. So the chamber in there is actually quite large. It doesn't end up here. It actually ends way down here. So you have this whole space below the stem where it enters the radiator base for it to collect moisture, so you don't get gurgling. So that's the whole idea behind the sump below the stem, so the moisture doesn't get introduced back into the stem for gurgling. So the long story short, the taller ones, they smoke better. Clearly, the longer you go, the more surface area you have, the cooler they'll smoke. But compared to, say, this guy, maybe not a big difference, but what Ben's smoking there, the shortest stubby one, that one you might notice a little bit more warmer smoke, just because you're so much closer to the source.
And he told me this after I started smoking it.
You did it.
But this is what I like. This is the style of what I like.
Yeah.
So, Hector, I have two more questions for you here. We've got them coming in. I know we keep getting out of your questions.
No, go.
Ian wants to know if on the straight stem, like Ben's smoking, what's the danger of getting liquid in your mouth? I don't think there really is there?
Now you tell me.
So far, nothing.
The likelihood of getting moisture in your mouth is very, very slim. Because I don't know if I can demonstrate this. These things are pressure fit into the aluminum. I actually have a special tool that expands the stainless steel. But what you'll notice is, let's see if I can demonstrate this. The tube will actually go past the wall of the radiator. It'll actually go in a bit. And the reason for that is, there's actually a very good reason for that. It's so moisture, it will tend to, a droplet of moisture will sit on this lip. And if it were flush with the surface, it would sit there forever. But because it's going to sit a little bit proud of the surface, it has a place to roll underneath. And that's where it drops off. And so if you were to smoke it like this, in this angle, eventually some of the moisture that's collecting in here will go that way. But it's not like a glob. It's not a huge amount. You smoke it ever so slightly in the opposite direction, which is just the natural way people quench anyway. It goes down no problem. But if you ever do get the tiniest little bit, all you do is puff back into the pipe once, and that ejects any moisture. But so far, I haven't had anybody complain about that specifically. But I can see where the question comes in. But again, if you look at the actual sump, as we call it, or the well, there's quite a bit of room beneath the well for, beneath the stem for the moisture to collect in. So I've never smoked it to the point where it reached that hole for it to come back. I haven't experienced that yet. But then again, I unscrew the bowl probably halfway through a bowl and dump it just to make sure. But even so, I've smoked it without dumping it just to do the test in some cold weather, and I haven't found it to reach the draft chamber yet. So it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Well, I'm what,
Cool.
40 minutes?
Yeah, 45.
Should I do a dump? I mean, it's not even, or should I do it at the end?
Yeah,
You
just
do
do
it
it
at the
at
end.
the end.
Do it at the end and show. Okay.
So Nanos Plumbing says to tell you hello, and he wants to know if you're ever going to make bowls with skulls and anchors on them. I just asked the
Hey,
question.
Nano, what's up, buddy? at the moment, that's not in the cards, but shoot me an email. We've worked together on other stuff. Nano's a good friend. I don't know if too many people know it, but when my son was in hospital, Nano and his wife and their little kiddo, they got together and they picked some toys for Peter, and they actually shipped them all the way up to Canada. They're from California, and it was all Wiggles related. The Wiggles, some Australian kids entertainers, and Peter was just loving them at the time. So they shipped up a care package for him, and I thought I was getting an old 27-inch old screen TV, like the tube style, judging by the size of the box. But when I saw what it was, I'm like, oh, he's gonna love this. So we opened it in front of him, and he just lost his mind. I took a bunch of videos, sent them out to Nano. It was beautiful, and to this day, he still plays with all of them. He still cuddles up with the little Emma doll in his bed. He has a drum that he still plays. He loves the DVDs. This is the only kid I've known to wear out DVDs. Like, he actually wore out the DVDs by taking them out of the case and putting them back in. The center is all shattered because he's taken it out so many times. He had his own little private DVD player in his bed, and he would spend all day just swapping in DVDs, watch about 10 minutes, and then swap in another one. And so anyway, that's how I got to know Nano. And he actually owns a radiator pipe. He's a big proponent of it. And so to answer your question, Nano, shoot me an email or text me. I'm sure we'll work something out if that wasn't just a joke.
Do you have more?
Hold on, I'm looking.
I'll shoot in one.
Yep.
Some of these, because these are general questions sometimes that sometimes only apply to just someone making a briar pipe, but what's the most frustrating thing about the process of putting the radiator pipe together? Just anything that's maybe frustrating.
The most frustrating thing?
Mm-hmm.
Early on, the most frustrating thing was making the bowls. You spend so much time turning a bowl, shaping it, in my case, turning a thread into it, and then in the final process of either sandblasting or finishing it, you find a pit. And going back to even my handmade days, is finding flaws in briar always sucks. Because no matter whether you have 100 blocks sitting on a shelf or you have 2 blocks sitting on the shelf, the fact that you sunk that much work into something that you now will not be able to sell is always the most frustrating thing, even for high grade pipe makers. I mean, the more you spend on your briar, generally speaking, as long as you have reputable suppliers, tends to improve your odds. But after all, this is a natural product. It grew under the ground. It grew in dirt. It's like expecting a potato to come out all shiny. They're going to have flaws in them at some point, and there's no way to tell without, X-raying them. At that point, it becomes costly. So, yeah, that's the most frustrating. I would say right now, where we are right now, I would say actually affixing this to this. Right now, it's taken a bit of time. It has to do with some pretty tight tolerances and press fitting, just to get it all right. But that's going to get solved. That's an easy one to solve. It's just a matter of time and money.
I just wanted to tell you that Smoke and Briar and Gordon Robinson both left you some feedback on YouTube, and they just wanted to say, interesting innovation, clean out process looks like it would really allow for a true flavor experience. And Smoke and Briar said, radiator pipes are sweet, they have an incredible draw and weigh next to nothing. And so yeah, there's some positive testimonials for you. And then David W. asked about the last pipe and stem that you held up, if it was a church warden version. I think that was the long bent, right?
I have, this is the longest straight I have. And then we have there's no good way to do that one. Then we have the long bent. And no, it's not church warden. This one should actually pass a standard pipe cleaner. Actually, hey, let's do that live. Find out if that works.
That's putting your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah.
And guys, if you have any more questions, pop them in and we'll ask them.
So that's a standard tapered pipe cleaner, and this is the long one. I generally do this with water running through, and that one's just going to be just a shy short. I can actually see it in there. So for this one, you'll need a church warden pipe cleaner, but it will pass a pipe cleaner. So there we go. We answered the question live on TV.
Nice. That's impressive.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have more?
No, that's all I've got for right now.
Okay, so when you're designing them or doing anything, improving them or making anything, is everything self-contained? Like you figure everything out, or do you have anyone that you bounce things off of or go to as a resource, or you kind of just hone in and figure it out?
You know what? That's actually a good question. I've always found it kind of difficult to bounce ideas off of other people, but it's definitely something that has started happening a lot with the radiator pipe. When I first made it, a lot of thought went into it, a lot of forethought, a lot of design, a lot of math, and it yielded a smokable pipe, right? So there wasn't a whole lot that needed to change, but the stem is a good example. The mouthpiece is a good example. That was the redesign was very much crowdsourced for information and opinion to figure out what worked better for people, and that's how we ended up with that. And that's really something I've had to learn over the last 2 years is how to bounce ideas off, especially customers who smoke these things, right? To get their idea, because everybody's got a different experience on it, different from mine. And that input, like they may run into an issue that I would never run into because of the way I smoke it versus the way they smoke it. So it's great to bounce ideas off of people. And one of the things that I've been doing lately is obviously branching out and getting ideas from other people. So just happen to have this thing laying around. Shameless plug, obviously. But there's I used to make cigar tools, and that's where the material for this came from. And so right now, what I've been producing is also this tool, which is called the Redeemer. Notice the font.
Oh,
The logo is very similar to the radiator, and what it is it's an aluminum cigar tool. So that's not crowdsourced, but that's the result of an awful lot of feedback from back in the day when I used to make these things by hand, and based on what to do. And I won't go over too much of it with you guys, but just to kind of answer the question, bouncing ideas off of people, especially other pipe makers, has been a huge help. A lot of them, it's difficult to lend support on a pipe like this just because it's so much out of the wheelhouse of a traditional pipe. But what they can do is they can compare it to how does a traditional pipe smoke and how can we improve it and so on. So it's been instrumental in getting the thing to where it is now.
Absolutely. I have a question for you, a follow-up on that, but first a couple that just came in. Scottish Ruffian 13 wants to know when he can buy the Redeemer. He said he missed the pre-order and he wants it.
Well, it's I'm expecting the first batch in the next week or so. That batch is completely pre-sold, so you're looking at probably a couple months before they'll be open to the public again. It's pulling me in many different directions, having several projects on the go. But yeah, I hope to bring them to you guys because I get probably 2 or 3 emails a week asking where can I get them, when can I get them, stuff like that. So yeah, you're looking at a couple of months.
It's a good problem to have.
I should know this. What is the function of it? What is it actually doing?
Since you asked.
Show us.
Show us.
So this is actually two different components. One of the problems that a lot of cigars have, not a lot, but quite a few cigars can have, is that they draw too tight. So once you've clipped it, you lit it, you draw it, it's like sucking on a wooden dowel, right? You can't get any air through it. And what that can be is actually it can have tobacco leaves that are rolled too tight or over moisturized from your humidor, or the veins inside the leaf, they can actually overlap and create like a log jam inside the cigar. So what you do is you unscrew one end of it, and I don't know whether this will show up on, and there's actually teeth cut into it. And what you do is you insert it into the cigar, and it actually cuts an air channel through it. And that way you're able to smoke a cigar that you just paid, you know, $16 for if it's an expensive one. And a lot of people think it only happens to cheap cigars. It doesn't. It happens to expensive cigars as well. It's a man-made product, you know, a natural product after all. And then you unscrew the other end, and you have a set of prongs. So that allows you to skewer the remainder of the cigar and smoke it down to a nub, down to a little bit. So that's the whole tool.
And
I mean,
how did this come to be made, and what was the story behind it?
Again, back in the day when I was really into cigars, I bought a lot of cheap cigars because that's all I could afford at the time, and I didn't have a proper humidor. So my cigars often suffered from poor draw, and so in an attempt to try and fix it, I went to the internet to look, and all of them recommended putting some kind of a steel shank into it. And you put it in, you pull it out, and it's great for about one draw, and then that airway closes on itself. It collapses again. Because you're not really doing anything. You're just opening it up, and its natural tendency is going to be to just close itself off again. So I designed it with some teeth in it to actually cut a channel. And that cures it for a much longer time, usually permanently. And so I made one of those. Everybody, I posted on Instagram at the time, I believe, or was it? No, I was on puff.com, which was a cigar and pipe forum. And people started commissioning them. So I started making them, and it was only natural that I add the nubber tool to the other end, and because it fit, and the whole thing fits in a portable humidor. Like it fits in, you know, a Zycar humidor. That's the Briar Brigade logo. I did their pipe of the year with Brandon Brooks last year. That's the Saints and Sinners Tatuaje form. They did. It's not. Just want to make clear, it's not sponsored by Tatuaje in any way. The actual Briar Brigade, that's just a group of guys and girls on there that enjoy pipes, and they call themselves the Briar Brigade. So they commissioned a pipe of the year, and so that they sent in a sticker, and I just really like that. So shout out to the Briar Brigade. And it fits in there, so it travels with you, so you don't have to worry about putting it in your pocket or anything like that. You can actually put it on a separate layer of the case and keep it with your cigars, and it doesn't damage them.
That's awesome. You're gonna ask that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just waiting for
I know what it is, but I want to hear specifically.
So, Hector, Ian asks what your favorite tobacco is. Favorite type of tobacco.
You may or may not know what my favorite tobacco has been.
Well, I knew it was gonna be a flake.
Yeah, this used to be my favorite until I discovered Bullseye Flake and Bullseye Rolls. Oh, I could eat that stuff. Like, you can chew that. It's so delicious. And once I discovered that with a little coin of perique in the middle, oh, that's by far my favorite.
How about so that's your favorite tobacco, and we know your favorite pipe is your radiator pipe. But what about any briarwood or any other pipes that come in second?
I just dropped my favorite pipe there, man. Believe it or not, this. And that is exactly why I like it. This was always by my side while I was making pipes. You'd throw it on the bench, you accidentally put tools on it. You don't have to worry about damaging it too much, and it's held up. So as far as daily smoker, this is my favorite. But as far as pipes, I enjoy most when I actually have time to sit down, relax, and smoke.
Yep.
I honestly love my radiators. But before that, just to be, not to sell that too hard, just looking at my collection, I would say my my Cody Perkins poker that he did for, I think, the OTL a few years ago. That's probably the best smoker in my collection right now.
Is it within reach?
Yeah, let me grab it.
Let's see it.
So we've got the nice bag. And this thing is amazingly light. It's got, I think that's Hadouk wood in there, and it's got an olive ebonite, and as well as a Cumberland ebonite stem. And it's just such a light pipe. You can smoke it anywhere. It's nice and smooth. It doesn't overheat. You don't have to worry about moisture too much. It's just a good smoke. Awesome. And seen quite a bit of action.
All right, what else do we have? Fire up with, we have more questions on there?
I actually don't have any questions in the queue right now, so if you have questions, definitely get them in. But I did make a, so we'll keep going. We'll answer your questions as long as you have them. I did make a promise that this time, for those of you who were with us last time for our marathon session, I made a promise that we would tell you how you can enter the contest at the 9 o'clock mark. So we'll keep going, and as long as you have questions for Hekthor, but I am gonna let you guys know how to enter the contest. So we have here, Ben, you want to show that? If you've just joined us in the last few minutes, if you go back to the beginning and watch the explanation of the different pipes that Hekthor has, I think it's really cool. But we have the giveaway pipe here. To enter the giveaway, here's what you need to do by midnight Pacific time, because we always want to let our friends out on the West Coast have a chance to get home from work and eat dinner, kiss the baby, and view this and enter the contest. So by midnight Pacific time, which is what, 4 a.m., 3 a.m. our time? They're 3 hours behind, right? So 3 a.m. Eastern time, 2 a.m. Hekthor's time, right? You're an hour behind us. Send an email to social@tobaccopipes.com. Social, yes?
Social.
Yeah, social@tobaccopipes.com. Tell us what your favorite moment from the hangout was, or what your favorite thing about your radiator pipe is. And we will choose a winner live on Periscope at noon tomorrow, noon Eastern time tomorrow. So send us an email. You do need to tell us, your email address, your Instagram hashtag, something so that we can reach out to you. If you fill out the contact form on our website and don't tell us who you are, it's really hard for us to give you anything to win. So please send an email with your information, what your favorite thing was about the hangout, to social@tobaccopipes.com, and I will meet with you guys tomorrow on Periscope at noon to draw the winner. You do not have to be live to win, but we draw it live, so it's fair, right?
That's right.
All right. So get your questions in, guys. Ben's going to ask a couple more questions of Hekthor. In the meantime, if you have any more questions, please get them in for us.
Yeah, fire them up. Anything, just ask them, and we'll be happy to ask. Hekthor, give me something that I didn't ask. Just tell me something, or what would you have asked yourself that we missed?
Oh,
a lot of pressure, right? I just took all the pressure off of me, and I just put it on you.
That's a skill.
Dance
you should
monkey.
That.
What do you want your customers to know? What don't they know? What didn't we ask? How about, actually, I got one. What about a cool, any thoughts on like a cool tamper or something to go along with these to match?
Actually, that's a question that's come up a lot in the past, especially when I dropped this guy. A lot of people asked, where's the pipe version of it? And it is in the works. It's actually, I don't want to give too many details away because it's going to, I haven't seen anything like it in the industry. Let's just say that way. It could be pretty cool. And it, as with any HWeeb product, it's going to be functionality first. So when I say it's cool, it's not referring to aesthetics. Not that it won't look neat, but it'll be neat from a functional standpoint. So that I'm working on that. There's absolutely no timeline on that because
is it going to be a self-tampering thing where I don't have to use my hands? Self-tampering device, voice activated?
Okay, it's going to be about 2 years away. No,
Virtual reality pipe smoking.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, the funny thing you mentioned that is I experimented quite a while ago on making a tabletop pipe that would be completely activated from bed. So you would basically have a button push. It would drop a light into the bowl. You push another button, it would drop a temper into the bowl. So you could have it sitting on the table next to you while you smoke and just sit there and just. So you could, whatever, read a book, what have you, with one hand, and then
Wow.
you could put the other without having to light anything. But that was a lot. I think there's a very good market for that. So.
That'd be hard to carry in your pocket too.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the tamper, the functional tamper, what you're working on, is it more of like just trial and error, or is it something that is you see definitely coming to market? Or just tell me you
what
can't.
It is.
I don't
No,
want.
what it is right now, to be honest with you, is making the prototype the way I want to make it is beyond the capability of the tools I have at my disposal. It's going to involve some more heavy equipment than what I have here. So it's going to get tested in virtual reality, in AutoCAD quite a bit. Going to do some. No, I'm not going to give it away. Okay, I was going to say some specific testing that might give away what it was. But yeah, it's going to need to be tested before I'm actually able to sub out the drawings to a machine shop that does have that equipment. And at that point, it should be close to final production once packaging and everything is done. But again, no timeline on that at all.
Okay, no, that's cool.
So that's something I just want to point out to people that I've gotten from speaking with you a couple times, Hekthor, is, I think sometimes when you look at the radiator pipes, you are like, okay, it's this minimalist, modernist statement or whatever, but really you are more of an engineer first, right? And kind of an artist second.
Yeah, and that kind of came out, I think, a lot in the way I used to make pipes as well. Is I didn't really do the traditional pipe shapes. What I did is I would design the airways and I would design certain concepts. I realized very quickly that I just liked testing and working with the airways and the science behind it. And then I would shoehorn that into a half decent looking pipe, and that's why stuff like what high grade pipe makers do, they do the opposite, right? They make a beautiful piece of art and they turn it into a functional equipment. That my brain doesn't operate that way. I work the other way around,
That's awesome. Sorry if you guys just heard that. We just had like an entire nightclub pass by the front of the building. So.
Did you see the what Scottish?
Yeah, Scottish Ruffian said he'll help you with your testing.
Yeah. There's a list.
All right, guys, fire up some more questions. Unless Hekthor, unless you have to go, or
I've got.
Okay. Let's see. What else do we have here? What about other? How diverse do you plan on getting with colors? I know that maybe you can't see the future, but I know you've expanded with some additional colors. How far out do you plan on getting?
Well, what I tend to do is I started off with my original batch was black, silver, and gold, and the gold was the wild card, the one I didn't know how well it would do, and it flopped. It did terrible. I could probably count on two hands the number of units I sold. So I discontinued that one. Then the next two unique colors I believe I brought out were red and blue. And lukewarm reaction to both. Red did a little bit better than blue. So those didn't make the final cut either. And then I came out with the purple one, which blew up. It surprised me. It did really well. So that one's coming back.
Tell us about the story you said about the guy that came up to you and asked about the purple color.
Right. The purple is really strange. Like I actually did some research into colors, and it was after this incident that I'll tell you about with the color purple. It has to do with what are people's favorite colors, and so I was looking, and it turns out apparently blue is the most common favorite color. Doesn't necessarily translate into a pipe for me, but so I do quite a bit of research into what colors work where, and one of the things that really surprised me was the purple one. I decided, you know what, I'll bring purple out. A friend of mine, Mike Meadows, I met him once. I met him on Instagram first, and then I met him when I was on business in North Carolina. Met him for some cigars, and his little girl, Harper, she was born or developed after birth an epileptic disorder. Had severe epilepsy, lots of seizures, and purple is the color for epilepsy awareness. So right around the time that him and I were talking a lot about it and how his mother was doing, I decided to bring out a purple one, and I didn't advertise it as, hey, this is epilepsy awareness or anything like that. I just noticed a lot of people were getting behind the purple color, so I figured I'd give it a shot, see if people liked it. And it sold really well. It did quite well. And when I was in the pipe shift, I would get guys coming up to me and kind of in a hushed tone lean over the table and say, hey, I really like the purple, but do other guys buy the purple? Like, is it a color that guys can buy? I said, yeah, absolutely. Anybody can buy. He's like, all right, I'll take the purple. You know, so I got that a couple of times. And I won't name names, but I got that from quite a few people. And it turns out that purple is a really, really favorite color of a lot of people, but I guess there's some kind of social stigma attached to it that they're not allowed to admit it. But the great thing about this is we can express ourselves however we want, right? So purple's coming back. And this one is actually, it's probably going to look terrible on camera, but this is actually a pink. It's not a purple. And how this one came out was a typo on the Pantone color code by manufacturer.
Wow.
So it was one character off from what I actually wanted. So they sent me pink ones, and I looked at them like, who's going to buy these? And apparently they're selling. Female pipe smokers, which admittedly there's a very small percent. But they seem to like it, and men will buy it for their wives, girlfriends, sisters, stuff like that. But I'm not sure whether it'll make it back in. It wasn't quite that hot a mover. So I think once that's gone, that'll be it. But I keep experimenting with colors. I did copper color and green. Copper seemed to move pretty good, especially on pipes.com. You guys moved quite a few of them. On my website, they weren't quite as hot, but that one's coming back. The green was a lighter green. I thought that would hit hard because I get a lot of requests for the green one, and it didn't do much as I expected. But I might bring that one back just to give it another shot, just based on how much feedback I get on color requests. I think that might be one of them. So we'll bring that one back probably a little bit later this year and see how it does again. But for now, I also have a teal one, which was another screw up on dyeing. This time not on my side; it was on the dye shops. That was supposed to be the original gunmetal gray, so it's gray. Unfortunately, whenever you do anodizing, the color that you see on a Pantone chart versus the color that ends up on an actual anodized product is completely different. You never know how much of the pigment the aluminum is going to take. Sometimes it ends up very pale, sometimes it ends up very dark. So it's hard to tell. It's a lot of experimenting. And but the teal one surprisingly sold. It sold fairly well. I don't have any intention on bringing it back at the moment because once they sold out, I didn't get any additional requests for it. And that's usually my litmus test. Like if I run out of it and people are emailing me, when are these going to become available again? That's how I know it was actually secretly hot. It wasn't just a happenstance that, it was the only color left, so I bought one kind of thing. So yeah, I think I'll keep pushing. If I get a big enough response to any certain color or enough requests for a specific color, I tend to try that. You know, you can only resist your customers so long.
Hector, what would you say? Because you know, people reaching out to you on colors and styles and stuff. Are a lot of people discovering you on social platforms or referrals, or how are you getting? How is social affecting you?
My sales are, I would say, 99% social media related.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Instagram is what I hit first. I'm on it all day, every day. Whenever I have a spare minute, fired up, respond to questions, stuff like that. And that feeds into Facebook and Twitter. But once the pipes get out there, it's just such an interesting pipe. I guess people feel the need to post it, and there's a lot of discussion around it, and a lot of people say, yeah, it's very interesting looking, but I don't know how it'll smoke. So, you know, if it was $20, I'd buy it. But the truth is, you know, there's so many different disciplines in this pipe. You got briar work, you know, which is unique only to pipe making. Nobody else does briar work, really. You got machining, which is the aluminum portion, and then you've actually got pipe bending, which is usually doesn't go with machining. Most machine shops won't bend pipe, right? So that's a separate discipline altogether. And then you have, in this case, CNC machined mouthpieces, which could in the future become molded, but they're CNC made and hand polished. You know, so you've got 4 different shops here, 4 different disciplines to make this pipe. And I forget what the question was.
No, you answered it. I mean, social media plays a big part of how people are discovering you.
Yeah. So you got the 4 different disciplines in there. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk to you there, buddy. Yeah, it's because it's the 4 different disciplines. You generally don't see that in pipe making, right? Yeah. You generally see one or the other. You know, you'll see a little bit of metal work in the bands and stuff like that, or inlays. But for the most part, you see ebonite and briar and some wood embellishments, right? So to bring other disciplines to it, it becomes very unique in the pipe world, and it gets talked about a lot. And I think the fact that we're having this conversation right here is a good example and evidence of that. People are interested in it. It just seems like they're waiting for somebody they know to get one, so they can touch it, feel it, get their honest opinion from somebody they trust, and then they'll jump in if they do in fact like it. So that's kind of the battle I've had to fight going in. Is it is so different that it interests people, but not always enough to buy. And I understand that it's not in everybody's wheelhouse. It's not, you know, it doesn't necessarily appeal to everybody, because that's what pipes are all about, right? It's all about individuality, and you pick what works for you. But I would, I guess my communication to the people is, if it's the looks that are stopping, that's fine. That's your thing. But if you're worried about how it smokes, don't worry about it. That part is taken care of, and the more people you talk to about it, it should give you a more warm and fuzzy feeling about it. The more people you talk to.
We had a couple of people comment over the last week or so when we've been running stuff for this. What in the world is it? I love it, because I'm like, doesn't everybody know by now?
So I'm gonna do. I know we have another question or two, but I figure I'm coming to the end of this here. Maybe we should do the dump. This will be my first time doing this.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So I'm gonna take the bowl off. And it was a really enjoyable smoke. It was the first time I've ever, you know, smoked it, but it was really nice. So it's got some build up in there. So let's see. Can you see?
Oh, watching you dump out your spit is awesome.
Is that a lot?
That's not spit. That's not spit.
It's moisture.
Exactly. You know what? That's the one thing I hear is that people feel it's spit collection. It's absolutely not. That would be going into your mouth normally.
Yep.
That's the moisture from the tobacco. That's the steam in the tobacco. So you're capturing that.
That's awesome.
Now, was that considered? I mean, You smoke.
You know what?
Is that a lot or a little, or how is that considered?
I would say, considering the fact that you're smoking indoors and you're smoking the shortest stem, so it has the least amount of surface area inside the stainless steel, I'd say that's a good amount. That's absolutely a good amount for that pipe. You'll see more than that the longer a stem you have, especially the tall bent one. That one will give you the most moisture, purely because A, it's the longest of the stems, and B, it's vertical, so the moisture has a tendency to go into the bowl quicker.
So would you say that would be, on average, it would go up to maybe right below where the stem enters the bowl?
If you were to, I would say it would stay below that, but if you're smoking it, say, outside in a cold climate, you'll get more.
Okay.
If you're smoking in a hot climate, you won't get quite as much, but you'll still get some.
Cool. Very cool. I see there's a question
I've got
that
a
popped
couple.
up there. Okay.
So Johnson JB80 says that he's on Google Plus, that he's looking forward to meeting you in Chicago and hopes you have a nice selection, and wants to know if you know where you're going to be yet in the center.
Oh, the table yet? No, sorry. I don't know where exactly our table's going to be. Like I said, I'm sharing with Dirk Heineman. We've tried to, I'm going with a couple of other Canadian pipe makers. They're representing True North Briar. And we were going to try and get tables next to each other, but unfortunately the venue said they can't guarantee that kind of stuff. So I'm not quite sure how they come up with the layout, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if it's, pick names out of a hat or they randomize it. I'm not sure. We didn't pay for a very specific placement or anything like that, so kind of at their mercy, I believe. But it's not that big a hall. You'll find me. Look for that. Look for that banner. You should be able to find me.
I'm sure you'll be on Instagram telling people where you are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know it.
Ian also wants to know if there's any plans in the works for a steampunk style pipe, and I was thinking they looked fairly steampunk-like already.
Yeah, you know what? I've gotten that comment actually a lot, saying that they look very steampunk. In fact, I was contacted by a cosplayer off of Instagram, and she's fairly popular, let's say, and it looks like she wanted to order one to go with her steampunk outfit, and I was quite honored that somebody actually noticed that. Yeah, they, despite being very, as you mentioned, Rena, very futuristic and very minimalist, they do still kind of harken back to the Victorian era sci-fi of steampunk. So right now, I don't have any particular plans to adorn it in any way that'll make it more steampunk per se. But again, if I ever have some free time, which is getting less and less these days, I might be open to commissioning a specific bowl that might lend itself to that, or something. But at the moment, I'm focusing on actually detaching myself from modifying every single one as much as possible, because my free time is getting less and less. You guys, anybody who's got kids knows what it's like, and has a 9-to-5 job on top of that. And in my case, my son Peter, he's 4 years old. He just turned 4 years old last month. But because of the amount of time in his life that he has spent being sedated, just unconscious in hospital, he's quite delayed. So he's got the decision-making ability of a 2.5-year-old with the physical ability of a 4-year-old. So you think 2.5-year-olds are bad at grabbing stuff off the table. Now imagine if he's another 8 inches taller than that with the same decision-making. Wow. So we have to watch him 24/7, because he can get into some pretty interesting stuff. And he's getting faster at it. So yeah, my free time is getting less and less these days.
Wow. Yeah. That's
Is that everything?
Yeah, I think so. I think that unless anyone has any last minute questions, Hector, I really appreciate how much of an explanation and stuff you had for us. I feel like this has been a really great overview. I even learned some stuff that I didn't know before. So
yeah, and I got to smoke the pipe for the first time. It was awesome.
I'm glad.
Learned some. Yeah, it was a good time.
Awesome. So I've got 6 or 7 emails already actually entering the contest. But guys, if you want to enter, you have until midnight Pacific time to email social@tobaccopipes.com with your favorite thing from the Hangout. Tell us what you liked about the Hangout or about your radiator pipe. And please tell me who you are so that I have a way to get in touch with you. So,
cool.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Hekthor, for taking the time to talk to us. Do we have any announcements? Anything coming up, or just not?
I don't have anything big right now because
Okay.
we're kind of gearing up, getting ready for Chicago. We
Okay.
will see. Well, at least Ben and Chris will see you guys. Maybe me. We'll see in Chicago in the end of the month, and Hekthor will look forward to meeting you in person there.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Hekthor.
No problem. Bye, guys.
Thank you.